Hello, this is Sarah's Soiled Plant and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be showing you the progress on all of the propagations I have, what I have growing, where it's growing, how it's doing. It's already dark outside. I know the Midwest in the US is getting hammered with snow and snowstorms right now. It is pitch black outside, but I will do my best to make sure you can see the plants and everything. Let's start with this shelf right here. Yes, I'm aware they still have Christmas lights on them, but I think they look cute and they make me happy, so I'm going to keep them on for at least a little while. Right here on this middle shelf, I have a nice coffee mug that has some propagations in it. I will pull out the top cutting of my Ficus tunicki so you can see the roots and also see what else is in this. The roots on this thing are crazy. The ficus is definitely taking over as far as roots are concerned. In addition to that, I also have a lot of cuttings from my Enjoy Pothos, Pearls and Jade Pothos. I'm not exactly sure which one I have, but it has a lot of nice new growth on some of these, and I'll pot those up soon-ish, maybe in the spring. But yeah, it's just the Pothos, Enjoy, and then my Ficus tunicki in there. Right on top of this humidifier, I have one of my potted up Adansonii cuttings. These all had insane roots, and I actually potted it up on the channel. I will link it in the eye up above, but this has not grown a ton since I've potted it up. I've got that one that looks like it's actually going to turn into a leaf, and there's a bunch of other little spikes in there that might turn into something. But for now, it's been pretty dormant, but it gets a nice spot right next to the window. This cutting in water right here is just a Marble Queen Pothos cutting from my main plant. Doing pretty well, got some good roots, but I haven't planted it up yet. And right next to it on this side, I have my String of Hearts. I've got the sort of butterfly method going on where I've got them staked down. You can see a little white stake right there and one right here. It's doing okay. We've got a couple little sprouts coming off, and I'm trying to water it consistently and not let it dry out too much while also not waterlogging it. But it hasn't grown a ton since I've set it up like this. And on this side of the room, my little record table, I actually have another of my String of Hearts cuttings and trying to propagate it on this butterfly method. So I've got some stalks coming out that are growing and not doing too bad. But overall, it's been a little bit slow. I think it's just because it's not getting as much light as it really needs. But they're still doing okay. Over here on my Calathea table, I do have a little water propagation going, where I've got one little piece of Philodendron Brazil, and then I have some of my Maranta, my lemon lime Maranta cuttings. And check out those roots. They're looking pretty good. The Brazil was a recent cutting, so it definitely has smaller roots, but most of that is from the Maranta, so it's doing pretty well. And then over here I have this little Micans that's only 2 little cuttings. They're doing okay. This leaf is fairly new. It's been skipping a few nodes, but it's doing alright, and there's a new leaf coming out, so Micans are pretty resilient. Hopefully that fills up a little bit, or I can make a few more cuttings and fill this one out. So these are all my propagations that are in sort of prop box style propagations, and I can go through these. So first of all, these two are both my Verrucosum cuttings. This top one I actually have had in here for a little while, and I've got some leaf growth on it. So this one is my best Verrucosum so far. This was the first little leaf, and this is the second one. It's nice and wet. It's definitely reacting very well to the humid environment. This particular cutting was one I took in the middle. I tried to cut down my Verrucosum to the base and then use the top as a cutting, and then the middle is this node right here, and it's doing really well. So while this sort of middle node that I put in this environment did very well, my top cutting did not do very well, and it never actually produced roots. So a few weeks ago I decided to give it its own prop box, and I took my top cutting and basically made nodes with it. So these node cuttings are very new, haven't really had a chance to root or leaf yet. This has only been in here for about a week, but I do have 4 little nodes here. I have 1, 2, 3, and 4, but that is everything for my Verrucosum. The base of the plant is actually doing very well. I will grab that and show that to you real fast. This is actually the Verrucosum that I cut all the way down to the bottom. It got this little sort of mutated leaf on it that's not full, but then it came out with this lovely big beautiful one, and it's got another leaf on the way. This is, I would consider, a success story, and hopefully the nodes will end up doing the same thing. And this propagation, of course, is my Monstera albo node. This one has been in here since August, so it's been about 6 months in this propagation container. It has not started showing any hint of a new leaf coming. I keep thinking that there's little bumps and things that will turn into a leaf, but it never happens. But it's not decaying and it's not getting dehydrated or anything, so it's definitely fine. It just needs a little bit more time. I will say on the bottom, there's definitely a root in here. I don't know if you can see it, but it's kind of right there. This little line, that is actually a root that went all the way down to the bottom. So it's definitely growing, it's definitely healthy, it's just taking its time, and I will let it keep taking its time. So after the varicosum ended up rebounding and the node ended up doing really well so quickly, I kind of had a reassessment on this node for the Monstera albo, and I thought maybe it's because this one doesn't get as good of air circulation. So this one is in sort of a normal nursery pot. It actually has holes in the bottom, whereas this one doesn't. So what I did very recently is I actually cut little sort of air holes, drainage holes, what have you, in the bottom. So hopefully that helps with airflow a little bit and gives it more of a fighting chance. Well, last but not least, I have my big propagation box here, and this one is doing pretty well. I've got a whole section of Cebu Blue cuttings over here. I actually had a plant swap recently, so I gave away a few of these Cebu Blue cuttings in a trade. So there's fewer in here than there were last week, but there's still plenty in here. And then of course, in this sort of diagonal section here, I have a bunch of the Scindapsus. Oh, I forget which type it is. I will write it down below which type of Scindapsus it is. It's definitely been growing new leaves for me. It's been rooting very, very well. I'm sure it's ready to be potted up, honestly, but I'm keeping it in here for now until I take the whole box apart. It's just easier that way. And if I kind of adjust some of these out of the way here, on this section over here that doesn't seem to have quite as much growth, it is actually all of my Monstera standaleyana nodes. Finally, it's been growing a few leaves here, here, and here. So there's a few. There's a little baby one right here. There's a couple that look like they're either putting off runners or leaves, either way. It's definitely interesting because even though there's a few nodes that haven't shot off any leaves or any roots, they're also not dying. So I think they just take a really long time to root and to grow. So I'm just gonna leave them in there and I'm gonna let them do their thing. Hopefully they turn into plants. If not, at least some of them will turn into plants and I'll be able to hopefully make a better plant than the one I have right now. Another propagation I have is this Syngonium chiapense. I got this as a top cutting in a trade, and it hasn't produced a new leaf for me yet. I did make sure it had plenty of roots before I potted it up, but I did pot this up a little bit ago, and it seems to be doing okay. It's certainly not deteriorating by any stretch of the imagination. It's definitely doing its thing. I'll still consider this propagation until it gives me a new leaf that's about the same size as one of these other two. Now this one's kind of fun. This one is actually the top cutting of my Autobot. I cut it off mainly because the leaves that were coming in were a lot smaller. So I figured while it was small, I would try taking a top cutting and letting the main plant kind of rejuvenate itself. So this one I'm actually rooting and propagating in sphagnum moss. I've seen some very amazing, big time professional growers of exotic plants doing methods like this where they grow in moss, keep it in moss, and just, you know, basically treat it almost like leca, but it's moss, at least while it's growing like this. And I thought I'd try it myself. Since I've taken this cutting, this was the most recent leaf. It did not have a new leaf yet or a new node coming out. This one was unfurling when I took the top cutting, and look at this leaf. It is still hardening off, which is why it's a little bit lighter than some of these other ones. Look at the backs. The back is almost as dark as the mature leaves, but it's darkening up, it's hardening up, but isn't that amazing? Isn't that just gorgeous? So I'm very happy with how this is going so far. Of course, as is true with any Audubon-poense, as soon as one comes out, another one's going to be on the way. So I'm really happy with how it's going so far. Yeah, I just love the Audubon-poense. It's such a good plant. I'm super happy with it. And it propagates really easily. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll catch you next time. Bye! I don't know how to wave from this angle. Bye!